morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's CC-Webinar.live keynote and panel discussion session. And thank you for joining. We would like to also thank to our official sponsor for hosting today's CC-Webinar.live session. Now, I would like to pass on the microphone to our moderator to introduce the speakers and panelists. For audience, if you have any questions to our speakers, please do use the chat box option throughout the session. That's all from my side. Now over to our moderator.
Hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a rousing discussion of cybersecurity at the forefront with a powerful panel shortly. However, prior to that, we have a great presentation by Edsel Paglinawan, Eastern Communications Head of Innovation. So I'll be turning over the floor to Edsel for him to start. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mika, and good afternoon, everybody. Well, good afternoon for those who are in the Philippines and in Asia, and good morning and good evening to all others. Okay, thank you very much again for having us today. It's a pleasure from Eastern Communications and with our partners from Cloud Sigma, from Cato Networks, and from Fortinet. Now, I am excited to share with you our joys as we execute our vision for the Philippines about the democratization of technologies, especially that we talk about the cybersecurity at the forefront today. So I'm gonna be showing some of the cyber criminals' latest and nastiest creations. And so basically, please don't go and follow these hackers that I'll show you. And so today, computers and servers, viruses and malwares, and all other attacks are actually designed to do everything. We know that, okay, from people working in the telecommunications industry, from stealing data to watching us in the webcam to the thefts of billions of dollars. I think, please allow me to pull up my deck. And again, and even some of these malicious codes now go far as targeting the powers, the utilities, and the different infrastructure. And so let me give you a quick snapshot of what malicious code is capable of doing today. Boom. We have these right now, every second, 11 new users are actually joining the internet. And today, we will see around 560,000 individual new malwares. And also today, we will see around 30,000 websites, as around 30,000 websites are being hacked every day. And just to kind of tear down a myth here, lots of people think that you get infected with a virus if you go to the porn site, for example, right? Well, actually, statistically speaking, if you only visit the porn sites, you'll be safer. And actually, 80% of these attacks are happening to small and medium businesses' websites. They just getting affected more and more often. And today's cyber criminals, sometimes I'd like to think, how do they really look like, right? Well, I think many of us have that image, don't you, of that spotty teenager sitting in the basement, hacking away for notoriety. And but actually, today's cyber criminals are wonderfully professional and organized. In fact, they have product advertisements, a lot of product adverts. So you can go online, buy a hacking service to knock your business competitor offline. And check this out, what I found out.
So you're here for one reason. And that reason is because you need your business competitors, rivals, haters, or whatever the reason is, or who they are to go down. Well, you, my friend, you came to the right place. If you want your business competitors to go down, well, they can. If you want your rivals to go offline, well, they will. Not only that, we're providing a short-term to long-term DDoS service or scheduled attack, starting $5 per hour for small personal websites to $10 to $50 per hour for huge DDoS protected websites. Prices may depend on how huge the website is or how protected it is. With 4 years of So you're here for one.
Okay, so no, I actually did pay for one of these type of criminals in my previous life. I mean, in my previous company. to attack one of my test subjects. Things just got tricky though when I tried to expense that one at my previous company, but it turns out really not cool. But regardless, it is amazing how many of these products and services have been becoming available to the cyber criminals. Now let's go and try to relate this to the coronavirus, to the pandemic that started last year. So last year, Checkpoint actually released the similarities and the parallelization of biological pandemic and the cyber pandemic. Remember RNAT? So we are not all statisticians here. We're not all mathematicians here, but RNAT, I think everybody just realize what RNAT is when we're talking about the coronavirus last year. Infection rate, look at the RNAT. So for corona, it's 2.4. And for cyber attacks, that's more than 27. So that basic reproduction number, RNAT, is actually used to measure this transmission potential of disease. That is the average number of secondary infections produced by a disease in a totally susceptible community, or without that herd immunity yet. And RNAT of cyber attack was once but tenfold that of coronavirus. So when it really comes to cyber, I should say be untrusting or trust as little as possible. And now let me talk about something academic in here. Bear with me for being a bit academic when I talk about the ephemeralization. Ephemeral or ephemeralization. Ephemeralization will actually have a profound impact on the way we do things, as we have to rethink our way of working and approach towards cybersecurity. Ephemeralization is a term coined by this US visionary and philosopher, Buckminster Fuller, who was actually using technology, or who used to describe technology as having the tendency to do more and more with less and less until eventually we can do everything with nothing. Imagine, again. So technological advancement would one day allow humans to do more and more with less and less until eventually you can do everything with nothing. And what sounds like a visionary and philosophical statement is actually something that we have been experiencing already these days. And if we take a look back, in the first, let's say the first computers, these were actually huge machines that filled the rooms with limited storage and processing capacity. And if we then look into our pockets these days, and just simplified our smartphone with dramatically more power, more computing or processing power, and more storage, that's now actually able to integrate all of these functions. And that is actually a concrete example of the ephemeralization. So exactly, even our smartphones, being able to replace the big DSLR or big SLR cameras in the past, and still replacing that with so many use cases. And actually, I'm an underwater photographer and been using big cameras also before, until I realized I can get a good housing in my iPhone and just decorate it with several strobes, and boom, I'm able to capture something like this simply using my smartphone. And again, that is one example of ephemeralization. And again, with more and more, with less and less, until eventually you can do everything with nothing. Let me explain how Eastern Communications envisions to be an enabler of ephemeralization in the Philippines. I think we are reaching a new tipping point this time. It's a new tipping point in the deployment of technology in our country. And actually, I'm inspired by this concept of democratization. There is a strong parallelism between Fuller's ephemeralization and my vision on democratization in the Philippines. Technology allows us to democratize the delivery of solutions and experiences in the Philippines. So we're seeing many vertical industries. So we're seeing that in many vertical industries already. And Eastern is executing and crafting new programs to reinforce the democratization of these technologies across all Filipinos. And this is where technology evolution in the Philippines has made access to technology rapidly continues to become more and more accessible to more and more people, regardless of the geographic location. This is our intent, to make Eastern more borderless. And our intent to serve the many unserved in terms of internet, in terms of cloud, in terms of cybersecurity, and ultimately securing the IT infrastructure, applications, and the data of our customers. And we make this happen. We will make this happen in the most cost-efficient manner. And that will only, that democratization concept will only happen if we're able to make our solutions be affordable to the mass market. That's what I metaphorically call as the technology for the sari-sari stores. So for the Filipinos, you can understand what I mean by the sari-sari stores. Let me talk more about technology for sari-sari stores later. And technology basically that makes businesses perform better is just as astonishing because it makes so many more things accessible to us than ever before. When you look at something like hotels, for example, in here, democratization has actually created Airbnb. So people can now be hotels. Airbnb democratized the hoteliers and even make more people experience the hotel-like stays. Democratization has also changed the way to commute, right? So obviously, if you look at Grab, for example, Grab taxi, Grab car, Grab food, etc., it has made the transportation so much more accessible to the people and democratized the taxi or the rent a car like operators to many individuals. I also have here the Shopify, which democratized the online businesses to anybody, automatically giving them free websites, etc., and even being able to help them doing the logistics. So a lot of Filipinos in particular were able to grab or capitalize on these different technologies, I myself being an Airbnb operator here in the Philippines. Now, democratization is basically creating the technology for sari-sari stores. The word sari-sari is a Tagalog word which means variety or sundry. Such stores actually occupy an important economic and social location in every Filipino community and actually are ubiquitous in the neighborhoods and along the streets. And sari-sari stores are actually not only a one-stop shop, providing locals with everything from, let's say, food, daily food necessities, also cleaning supplies or rice or whatever. And most of them are even in sachets. But aside from that, they're not just a one-stop shop, but these are actually a colorful cultural icon that brings together the community. Again, though this is just a metaphor, imagine enabling sari-sari stores with internet. Enabling sari-sari stores with cloud. Enabling sari-sari stores with security. I can't imagine a sari-sari store, again, though that's just metaphorical, I can't imagine sari-sari store having that internet connection, having that router, or having that firewall, being able to capitalize the democratization of cybersecurity in the Philippines using, for example, the Eastern SIM, using, for example, our firewall as a service, capitalizing the internet resources, the cloud resources using the democratized cloud experience. Now, imagine how Eastern can empower not only the big enterprises, but even the MSMEs, the micro, small, medium enterprises, even with democratized cost. And at Eastern Communications, we are with the government to ensure the democratization of internet services, especially to the unserved and unserved areas. At Eastern Communications, we are also one with the United Nations in executing the exercise of this very basic human right to internet access, to access to information. Not only wired, but we are bringing internet to the remote communities and villages via satellite very soon. And we democratize the internet grade, we democratize the telco grade IT infrastructure. So if you want to, enjoy the benefits of a tier 3, at least tier 3 telco infrastructure, you don't necessarily have to build your own telco grade IT infrastructure. With Eastern Cloud, for example, powered by Cloud Sigma, one of our partners in here. The true locally hosted cloud in the Philippines know that don't need to get express route, for example, because the traffic just terminates in our data center. The way we transform and the way we interconnect the branches locally or even abroad, connect them to the public cloud, for example, support our telecommuters, those people working from home. All orchestrations are simplified and management in a single pane of glass. We have Eastern SASE, and that's powered by our partner K2 Networks. And imagine again, going back to cybersecurity, if we're able to protect all the businesses, big enterprises, MSMEs, which again, I metaphorically call as the sari-sari store segment, with the SIM, Security Incident and Events Management, and the Security Operations Center as a service, with our democratized Eastern SIM powered by Fortinet, the engine of which is locally hosted in our Eastern Cloud. Now, actually, when I was, when we were conceptualizing with my team and the rest of the commercial people and our technical teams about how are we going to execute the democratization of these technologies in the Philippines, honestly, I was having goosebumps. How we are denting the industries in the Philippines in protecting them against possible cyber attacks. Sorry. Again, remember, 80% of the attacks are launched against the SMEs, right? So this is our passion. We are your provider in the Philippines, connectivity provider in the Philippines, connectivity partner for our carriers. So with our dedicated internet, dedicated lease line, with our secured connectivity, undoubtable excellent customer service. We are Eastern Communications, your excellent partner in the Philippines, and we invite you to be part of this journey, making impact to our country. Good afternoon. Let's stay safe and healthy, and let's keep on inspiring each other. Again, this is Edsel Paglinawan from Eastern Communications. Maraming salamat po.
All right, so that's the talk of Edsel Paglinawan regarding the democratizing cybersecurity for businesses during the pandemic. So basically, he's the head of the product and innovation at Eastern Communications. Let me summarize what he discussed a while ago. I'm the product manager for the cybersecurity portfolio here at Eastern Communications. And the reason why we think that this topic is extremely relevant today, especially during the pandemic, is that we see that most of the attacks happen to our clients who are not conglomerates, who are not enterprises, but the SMEs or the mid-sized businesses. Now, we see that there is also this misconception that cybersecurity is far too expensive, even for the conglos or the enterprises, much more the SMEs, which is why ETPI has geared our vision towards serving the clients with cybersecurity solutions. By democratizing the solutions, by letting other people secure their business, protect themselves with the solutions that we offer. Now, the partners and the panelists that we have here today are the people that help us reach that vision. Let me introduce you to Eastern's partners, and I'll be asking each of them to speak briefly about an introduction about themselves. Let's start with Eric Cheng, the Regional Sales Director of Asia for K2.
Thanks. Thank you guys for having me. So quick introduction. My name is Eric Cheng. I'm one of the sales directors based out of Hong Kong. Look after the Philippines as well as the Asia Pacific. Spent a long time in telecoms, IT, network, and yeah, very happy to be here talking to you guys today.
Thanks, Eric. Now, the next panelist would be Robert Jenkins, the CEO of Cloud Sigma.
Yep. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Robert. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cloud Sigma. We're a partner of ETPI in the Philippines, and together we're offering a local cloud to the community in the Philippines, very much focused on accessibility, no vendor lock-in, and we have both IaaS and PaaS services that we're offering, and we're very committed to the Philippine market. We've been working with ETPI for quite some time, and the cloud is actually very successful there, so yeah.
Thanks, Robert. And then lastly, of course, would be Nap Castillo, the Systems Engineering Manager at Fortinet.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nap Castillo. I'm the Systems Engineering Manager for Fortinet Philippines. And we're partnering with ETPI for the managed SIEM for this project. Thank you for having me here.
All right. So we've already introduced each of our partners, and you've heard the PowerPoint presentation of Edsel Paglinawan for today. Now I'd like to ask each of the panelists in the order that I called them on to share their thoughts regarding Edsel's presentation. Let's start with Eric. What do you think about democratizing cybersecurity for the businesses during the pandemic?
Yeah, really great question. Look, I think, with the world that has significantly changed into the new norm at the moment, right? Business, network, and security is important to everybody, right? Getting easy access to these types of services is something that everyone should explore, definitely. A lot of these technologies in the past were only available to the very large enterprise, and particularly the small, even the mediums. Which are openly the focus of many of these ransomware, malware attacks. You're hearing constantly in the news a lot of these threats that are happening, and small to medium businesses are powerless to be able to tackle some of these. So look, I think absolutely there is a pathway to be able to take advantage of the emerging technologies and the innovations that are happening in this world. To make business more secure and more optimal moving forward. So, yeah, look, 100%.
Thanks, Eric. I'd like to echo his sentiments about empowering the clients that are much smaller than the conglos and the enterprises, since all conglos and enterprises have started from SMEs. So we would like to do that for these clients. We see that vision, and Keto also supports us on that. Now for the next would be Robert. What is your idea about, or what do you think about Edsel's presentation?
I mean, I basically in principle agree with what he's saying. The pandemic basically saw an acceleration of existing trends, a forced acceleration, of course, to remote working, cloud-based systems, etc. Now, the good news is that actually moving to the cloud essentially is the process of outsourcing IT services essentially. And you're outsourcing them to subject matter experts. So you can actually use it as an opportunity to improve all kinds of aspects of your IT, including security. So when you're using services in the cloud around security, these are being operated by people whose job it is 24/7 to be on top of security. And so like anything, when people specialize and have a deep knowledge of an area, they're generally more effective. So it's actually an opportunity to improve security for everybody, including SMEs up. And the good news is because the cloud has a consumption-based model, generally, it's much more accessible. What I mean by a consumption-based model is it's much easier to like subscribe and unsubscribe for services. With kind of tiered plans and things like this, and kind of pay as you grow, you can think of it. So the older model where you had to buy an appliance, install it in your office or data center, etc., that tends to be harder for SMEs, especially and smaller enterprises to work with. And the cloud actually offers a much easier way from a cash flow perspective for SMEs to start subscribing to those services. And the democratization, finally, also ease of use drives adoption. This is a basic sales thing as well. And never more true for security. You know what it's like when you have security that's really clunky. People just circumvent it, right? They just go around the security. They're like, if you have to do some complicated things. And so one of the great things about cloud is it can actually integrate security services very elegantly, let's say, so that the user experience is much better. And then again, that makes it much easier for companies to actually start using proper security services when they move to the cloud.
Thanks, Robert. So I'd also like to drill down on that point, especially when he mentioned that the people who are well versed with all of these cybersecurity topics, such as our partners in ETPI, we're no longer just a connectivity provider. We've positioned ETPI as the next ICT provider, especially cybersecurity. So we don't just give you connectivity anymore. We also serve our clients with secure connectivity and the security solutions that we currently have in the portfolio, as well as those that we're currently productizing. Now for the last panelist, Nap Castillo, let me hear your thoughts about Edsel's presentation.
Hello, hi. The cybersecurity democratization is actually in time for the digital innovation adoption of lots of companies. Of course, with this digital innovation, like moving in the cloud, as well as having multiple edges on our networks, widens or broadens the cyber attack surface of a company or an organization. And if we talk about small to medium businesses, they are actually the ones that are being hit hardly by this kind of cyber threats because they only work on a limited budget. And this cyber security democratization will be a big help to this kind of businesses. This will help the businesses, not only in terms of securing their network, but as well as provide visibility and manage this kind of threats, without having a trained cybersecurity professional on their premises. It will be done by ETPI themselves on their managed security services. And this cybersecurity, as we all know, keeps on, or the cyber threats, as we all know, keeps on evolving. The cyber criminals are becoming more innovative. They are coming up with new technologies as well as coming up with different techniques to craft an attack that can result to a devastating effect to a business. And this democratization is really a good one. Yep.
Thanks, Nap. There was one point in what you said that I think is connected to our very first question for the whole panel, where you mentioned that the area about the attacks are growing right now. The layers go beyond just one layer. It's not just the network. It also goes beyond the emails. It goes beyond the gateways. It goes beyond the servers. So the very first question for the panel is, as experts in your fields, cyber attacks are higher than ever and the stakes have never been higher. What sort of cybersecurity is the most important right now? And what can a company not live without these days? Edsel, you may start to answer this question.
Thank you, Mix. Well, the question demands for a technical answer, but I would like to move away a bit from the technicalities behind the cybersecurity. I think it's more about our societal contribution also, being the enablers in the industry and the ones doing the gatekeeping in the industry. As you know, I'd like to talk about the three aspects of the cybersecurity here. It's not only about, well, it's when we talk about cybersec, to me, we talk about protecting our network and infrastructure, and that also includes our internet resources. That's where the anti-DDoS comes in, right? That's where we're protecting everything else using all others using the firewalls and all other endpoint boxes that we deploy. The second is, aside from protecting the IT infra or the IT network and the internet resources, we also protect the applications, okay? But equally important in protecting the network and the applications is also the protection of the data, especially the users' data, employees' data, customers' information, all these users' data that are actually entrusted to us. And to me, these three, protection of these three domains are equally important as far as the cybersecurity is concerned. So I cannot discriminate which one is more important over the other. As many people are so, or many enterprises and even individuals are so concerned about how the different, enterprises are utilizing their personal information as well. Yes, digital has dematerialized our world. And actually people, us to some extent, who we are today, we have actually become just a collection of pieces of data, or in data protection, I think we call that as the personal identifiable information, right? And protecting this data and the data governance goes to the heart of what we value as the society. And that demands that in telco, in ISPs, as technology providers, that demands that we do our best work to protect those digital persons in our care. So it's the data, personal information, all the users' information, equally important with the protection of the IT infra and the protection of the applications. So all in all, I think, again, as I mentioned, I cannot discriminate which one is higher in the hierarchy over the other.
How about you, Nap? What do you think about that question?
Hi. In my opinion, most of the organizations must already have the basic solutions, the basic network security that has been mentioned by Edsel, like the next generation firewall, which protects the network perimeter. But nowadays, the networks are becoming borderless because of the explosion of the billions of edges, like our own mobile devices accessing the different corporate systems, okay? And other basic security services that should already be in place are the email security gateways, the web application firewall to protect the e-commerce website, at least the endpoint protection. But what is missing right now is the ability to professionally manage and monitor what is happening within these different network security in place the network. And other than that, those products that I mentioned earlier only covers the known threats, meaning the ones that was already been seen previously. What about the unknown threats? This is something that the organizations must take a look up into. Like, for example, the advanced threat protection, which basically covers the zero-day threats, those threats that just came out of the wild and begins infecting different systems. This even include the ransomware, the most feared ransomware that we are seeing around the cybersecurity news. And in addition, the artificial intelligence and machine learning driven security devices, or the securities platform, should be able to cope with the addressing or the rapid orchestration of security policies within the network. So that is my take on this one.
Thanks, Nap. Now, after saying that the edge is now expanding, this question may be geared towards Robert, since since someone from the audience is very much interested in the cloud, we've heard the intent of Eastern Communications to democratize cybersecurity. What are your insights and how can Cloud Sigma support Eastern in this journey?
Yeah, so it comes back to, I think, what we were saying about the making security services accessible and easy for customers to deploy and to do so in an integrated manner. So we see part of our role as a cloud service provider as giving the tools to users so that they can secure their computing, or their advisors, professional services that they use can help secure their computing, and to do so in an integrated way that's easy to set up and maintain and cost effective. So that's really how I see the role of a cloud service provider. So it's not our job to secure your computing, because to secure someone's computing, you have to have an understanding of the system, and we don't have that understanding. So there is no one size fits all security solution, like some sort of magic bullet, a magic force field descends over the cloud and it's protected. This is just, this is fantasy. So the reality is that what you need is a set of tools that you can deploy to secure your computing, or the people that you get help if you need additional services from. So that's kind of our role, and that's what we do with ETPI, is basically work with them as well, because they have other products outside the cloud to allow customers to put their infrastructure and also applications, because we also have a platform as a service offering now, that they can deploy onto the cloud, and then they can use those tools to with the knowledge of their systems and what's required to deploy their infrastructure within the cloud and have it run securely. Just to say what you were talking about in terms of tools and things like this, the cloud basically, so things are moving, as Nap was saying, away from this kind of simple networking architecture to something more borderless. And so you kind of you move towards more of a concept of zero trust and basically like profiling behavior, essentially. And there are a lot of good tools for doing that as well in the cloud and outside the cloud. And so it's a combination. But what I would say is that good security in the cloud is basically the same as good security outside the cloud. There isn't really anything fundamentally different in the cloud. So it's just a matter of best practices. And just as a bit of a wild card, I would say the cheapest and the easiest cybersecurity that you can do is training your staff, because most people don't do any kind of training on staff. And so literally their entire company is put at risk because an employee can't recognize a phishing email, right? Now you can say, well, we can have tools to try and prevent them receiving it and this and the other, but there is no 100% effective tool like that. So the reality is basic training for staff, in my opinion, is the cheapest, most cost-effective way to start. It's not sufficient, right? But it's necessary. So it's something that everyone can do relatively inexpensively that can vastly improve your security as a company, however big or small. And then, from there you can move on to, what systems do we have and this, that, and the other. But just starting with that basic education can make a huge impact to these kind of attacks.
All right, I think we're having a couple of technical difficulties with Robert, but I just like to summarize what he said. We always tell this to our clients whenever we meet them in the market, that there is no one-stop solution that you offer to instantly secure your network. Now you see that these specialists, people who are very well versed in the network side and next generation firewalls in the cloud, they say that what you do to secure your business is to build the system that works for you. What resources that you have to know those. And then you also have to train the people that are in your community. So I think this next question goes out to Eric. SASE is also part of Eastern's democratization efforts, and it is very interesting. Would this technology be advisable for smaller companies or even medium-sized enterprises? How would it help them moving forward?
Yeah, look, very, very good question, right? So I might also just add on to the earlier ones, right? You know, what is the best type of technology, right? And I guess from my perspective, there's no, right, with what Robert was thinking, there is no one solution that fits everything, right? It's all going to depend on the type of user you are, where your data is being kept, what locations, and what's most valuable, right? You know, a financial company will have different requirements as opposed to someone with a manufacturing background. You've got different levels and appetites of risk. But there's two facts that we do know, right? Number one, malicious attacks like ransomware, malware, right, is on the rise. You look in Google on any statistic, every vendor will tell you something different. The rise of the number of attacks is going up. We also know that the volumes of the ransoms, right, that have been extorted from enterprises, that is also going up. I think, you know, this year we've seen sums of like 5 million, 30 million, right, all around the world, which aren't cheap by any means, right? So, you know, it's really going to depend on the appetite of the business and the level of risk. And then there's, you know, best practices and things like that that can definitely help, you know, internal training and technologies that will assist in that, right? But SASE is a very interesting space, right? So when Gartner came out with this term back in 2019, they talked about SASE being not a new technology per se, but a new architecture for the modern business, right? Everyone's moving on to cloud, people are working from home, all these different solutions and services are almost borderless, right? So how do you protect all users and all resources no matter where they are? And that's what SASE was brought to life to do, right? A platform that can completely manage, right, all types of your network solutions, all your users and all the resources in a single converged cloud native platform, right? These types of features or best in class, you know, security solutions that people are accustomed to buying, right? They're typically reserved for the very large enterprise, right? And that was the challenge because the large enterprise, they probably had the knowledge, right? Like the people and team, skilled workers, etc. They had the expertise to manage it, right? And cost wasn't out of reach for them, right? But the small to medium, right? So these large enterprises, like you mentioned earlier, right? They came from somewhere. They were a small company once upon a time, right? But as they grew, right, more and more technology became important. Right? I want better security. There's a new threat that's coming out. So I'm going to invest more and more time into all these different solutions, right? And SASE is here to deliver that consistently, right? So if you can converge all these different solutions together into a single platform, you're a complete enterprise stack of best in breed, then that's going to be a better architecture to be able to manage that, right? Because in a SASE platform, you don't need to go and employ an entire team of network cloud engineers, security engineers to be able to manage it. You don't have to go out and run a whole bunch of hardware and infrastructure that has to be constantly patched, upgraded, and refreshed. And that's making that a lot more accessible to the small to medium enterprise.
All right, thanks, Eric. I'd like to, for the people who are watching right now, I'd like to solidify Eric's comment about not really focusing on the technology, but rather on starting to secure your business. It's not a matter of where you start, it's a matter of when you start, because when it comes to attacks just come. No business, no matter how small or how big, is not prone to attacks. So we've seen from the market that whether it's an enterprise or even an SME, they get attacks, whether it's through their servers or through their emails, which is why it's important to find a partner that you trust, a partner that's credible enough to give you the solutions that you need, people who don't just sell you solutions, but people who actually care about your business and about keeping it afloat, especially during this pandemic. Now, when it comes to the providers, I think this will be geared for Edsel. Telecommunications are the gatekeepers for cybersecurity. How else are telcos and ISPs supposed to help businesses with regards to cybersecurity? And what is the expectation of these companies in the new normal?
Okay, it's a long question, but let me just define first that new normal thing. or the now normal, or that new normal, or yeah. So I used to say that what we're experiencing today, that is what I call as the interim normal. All of a sudden, all these technologies came about. People and companies embraced with whatever is available in the market to protect their data, to do the online selling or whatever. Okay, that will continue their businesses to grow, or at least to sustain in the midst of the crisis. Now, in this interim normal, what I think those technologies or those initiatives that we are doing today that will continue to bring in value once we achieve that herd immunity, I think these are going to be just part of our new normal. Now, we realized many learnings since last year. There's no time anymore for, okay, I'll just do it later. We've been doing that. Digital transformation is one thing that, has been, a sexy word across all industries, but has never been embraced fully until last year when COVID-19 triggered the DX of the many. Now, it's just because we're unprepared. And now how this makes me realize that in Eastern Communications, after we transform our portfolio, after we evolve our portfolio 3 years ago, I call it planting the seeds. One of my favorite slogans was that the best time to plant the tree is 10 years ago, but the next best time is today. So I think we're lucky enough that we're able to plant the seeds of the tree 3 years ago without any hint of having this pandemic since last year. And that's one of the pivots that we've made, being an excellent partner of the DX, being an excellent partner of branch transformation, being an excellent partner of cloudification of your applications and your infrastructure using our Eastern Cloud. And that will continue in actually the new normal. And going back, what's basically the focus of the telcos? What's the focus of the ISPs? As this is cybersec, let me go back to the statistics I showed earlier, that 80% of those who are being attacked are not actually big enterprises. So many big enterprises are even complaining about the cost of ownership, the total cost of ownership in building their own cybersecurity infrastructure. Even, in my very nice conversations with many CIOs before pandemic, with the Bangko Sentral, for example, Central Bank of the Philippines, enforcing the different banks. I think it's confined now to commercial banks, that they should have their own security operations center. And part of my conversations, our conversations with the heads of IT, CIOs, was that, come on, Edsel, this is very expensive for us. Why can't there be just an organization that will build the SOC for the banks so that at least we can just get it on subscription model? And that is putting cybersecurity in the cloud. It's the same concept of putting the network and the security in the cloud with our SASE solution, right? So again, going back to that 80% thingy, I think that's one of the focus. That should be one of the focus also of the local telcos, global telcos. Big enterprises probably, yes, they have the budget to spend, but how about this, again, sari-sari stores? How about the MSMEs? They deserve to be protected. They have their own, businesses, but it's actually this concept of democratization is actually one of what inspires me as well. Was when I was in one of the shops down here in the city of Manila. I was shopping for one diving gear, and it's just a small dive shop. And I was looking at the counter, at the cabinet, and there are a lot of routers or something like that, routers or modems or whatever. Then I was asking the owner, so what are those routers for? Imagine guys, that is just a small shop, but of course expensive, somehow expensive gears. And I was asking the owner, what are those for? Are just those routers, or are they SD-WAN routers, or there was no SASE back then? Then to my surprise, they were telling me, we are subscribed to a cybersecurity solution, a monitoring system in Germany. Luckily, they have the bandwidth to subscribe to that kind of solution back in his hometown. The owner is a German, back in his hometown. But what about all others in the Philippines that deserve to be protected like that, right? And that is the inspiration that we've come up in Eastern. And that's the major theme of what we're doing these days. It's not only cybersecurity, democratizing cybersecurity, democratizing the transformation of the branches, but as I mentioned earlier, even as basic as protecting or giving them the basic human right of access to information. And that is the democratization of the internet as well. So I think, again, just to answer your question, Mix, no, or one of the audience questions in here, the focus should also be geared towards what about protecting the businesses of the 80% of the total universe.
Thank you, Ed. Now, I would also like to re-echo that. So I think that telco should go beyond just serving their clients with connectivity. It's not, especially in this new world right now, post-pandemic, it's not just about connectivity or secure connectivity. It's about the whole system, which is why it's important for you to find a partner that you can always rely on. So that's why whenever we invite our partners such as Cato or let's say Cloud Sigma or Fortinet, we show you that we care about the business, about their clients' businesses, not just about their reputation. Because we see that with our vision right now, we go beyond the connectivity portion of the business. Though we also care about that, we're already looking at the future of things. Now, connected to what Edsel said, this one is for NAP. NAP, still on the democratization topic. Edsel mentioned earlier about the partnership of someone that he saw during his diving trip, about someone who took a system that was in Germany. So they heard that the Eastern SIM for sari-sari stores is the first engagement of Fortinet of this kind of business model. So kindly share your insights on how Eastern SIM powered by Fortinet can create that dent in businesses, especially for sari-sari stores or SMEs.
Okay, thank you for that question, Mika. Well, actually, at Fortinet, we do believe that securing the network is equally important as having visibility on what is happening on this network or security devices. Now, even if you are using other brands, may it be Fortinet or what other brands, it is also important that we know what is happening, what are the kind of threats that is being blocked or going through into the network. And this information has to be correlated with different network elements within the network. May it be the routers or the switches or the access points or even the endpoint clients within the customer's environment. And having this visibility will provide an insight to the customer on what will be their next steps, or if it is integrated to a security orchestration and automation response facility, this kind of threats will be automatically blocked by the security in place. And having the SIM or having your network security devices integrated into SIM somehow provides you a local threat intelligence, thereby sharing these different hashes or the threat intelligence information to different security vendors across the network.
Thanks, Nam. So I think it's apparent that all of the panelists here are very passionate about the cybersecurity, and unfortunately, we are nearing the end of this webinar. So for all the panelists, I would like to hear a few final words from you. Let's start with Eric of Cato.
Yeah, sure. So Mika, look, thanks for having us. At the end of the day, right, you talk about security breaches that are happening all across the region, any type of vertical industry, geography, right? So I would say, there's two things I'd like to leave a note on, right? Security breaches happen under two real scenarios, right? Either someone did something they shouldn't have, opened up a website, there was a virus or something like that, they didn't do something that they should have, like patch a firewall, patch a security, IPS, update some signatures, right? And network complexity never got so networks never got so complex because over time, people invested more and more technologies, etc., into it. By trusting someone like an Eastern to manage this holistically for your network, right? There's no better time than never, particularly if you don't have the time, the resources, the capability, or the money, right? And these cloud-based technologies are things that are going to empower you to have a better security posture, but also trust on the experts to be able to manage this as a proactive service that you don't have to actually update, patch, and maintain yourself, right? The innovation that's happened over using software means that everyone can get access to a lot of these things, right? Simplifying the entire security model, right? Making it accessible from a cost perspective and a sustainability, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a small, medium, large, just a local Philippines enterprise, or you've got something right on the other side of the world that's 20 hours on a flight away, right? Cloud-based technology can simply empower all that and secure it, right?
Thanks, Eric. How about you, Robert, for any final words?
Sure. It's a little bit difficult following everything. So yeah, what I would say is the cloud can give you access to a greater choice of tools, allow you to add and remove tools much more easily with instant deployment, instant configuration. And just to say, with our collaboration with Eastern, all the customers there can have a local cloud, 100% based in the Philippines. All the data's in the Philippines, so it gets rid of a lot of the compliance issues and complexity. Plus, of course, better networking performance because everything's local. And we ourselves have a 24/7 technical end user support available to users. So if they get stuck or they need help, that's available for free. Again, it doesn't matter how big or small the user. And of course, ETPI Eastern also have your own account managers that are working with the customers. So what I can say is that we'd heard about many of the advantages of cloud-based solutions, and we could describe the cloud services being offered by Eastern or ETPI as a kind of supported cloud. So it's a great way to sort of dip a toe into moving to the cloud by using the local cloud of ETPI in the Philippines.
Thanks, Robert. And lastly, Nap, before we hand you over to the final words over to Edsel.
Okay. Cybersecurity should be broad. Broad in a sense, in terms of coverage of protecting the network, and not only in terms of protection, but as well as in terms of visibility. And to be able to have a broad visibility, the network or the cybersecurity should be integrated into security incidents and events management, which are being hosted by ETPI on this one. And having visibility will just be one step ahead of what is the current state of the cybersecurity right now. The next steps will be the automation after we have all the information that we gather from the SIEM. To add on that, the cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, in my opinion, especially if you are going to host it in the cloud, be it be in the premises or in the cloud, as Robert mentioned earlier. The security needs for cloud is the same as what the on-premises data center is needing as well. So for cloud security, you need to secure your own infrastructure as well as the platform that you might be running on this infrastructure, okay? And these infrastructure can also be integrated to the SIEM that is being offered by Eastern Telecoms.
Thanks, Nap. Now, Edsel, for any last words?
Okay, maraming salamat po. That is thank you in Filipino. And as I mentioned, we invite you to join us in this journey. be it in your connectivity requirements, in your cloud requirements, in your cyber requirements. Let Eastern be your remote hands here in the Philippines. Let's continue to create that dent. It's more than business, as I keep on saying, not only in this forum, but in all other forums that I've been invited. It's creating a better Philippines through the democratization of our technologies. Again, we are Eastern Communications, your partner in the Philippines. We invite you to join us in this journey. Thank you very much and good afternoon, everybody.
Right, so that ends the webinar for today. I would like to thank you, Edsel, for that last word, and thank you to all of our panelists for today. It was a very enlightening discussion about cybersecurity at the forefront. I would also like to thank the global carrier community for this webinar and for partnering up with Eastern Communications to make this event possible. And finally, thank you to the attendees for joining us today. For more about us, please do visit our website at www.eastern.com.ph or feel free to reach out to our resident contact of Global Carrier Group, JV Suarez at suarezjc@etpi.com.ph for further information on that. So thank you very much for coming to this webinar, and we hope you have a good day.
Thank you. Dear all, we are at the end of this webinar session, and I would like to thank to our speakers for sharing their knowledge with us. Also, thank you to the audience for participating and listening. This panel will be soon available to watch on the CC Media portal. We are looking forward to welcoming you at both virtual and physical events this year. Please visit our events portal for more information. If you are interested in sponsoring one of our future branded webinars, please do contact CC team. For all the updates and fresh content, please follow us on social media. Also, subscribe to our Telegram news channel to receive exclusive invitations to our upcoming CC-Webinar.live sessions. Stay safe and healthy. Goodbye.